Olivia Bennet, 34, stared at her bank statement in disbelief. $56,000, gone. The culprit? Her own sister, Rachel. For 2 years, Olivia had trusted Rachel to help manage their mother's care funds, never suspecting betrayal from her own blood. But what Olivia couldn't know was that her 9-year-old daughter Emma would accidentally uncover the web of lies that would tear their family apart and ultimately serve the justice no one saw coming. Before I dive into this wild family drama, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If you enjoy real-life family drama stories, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more shocking true tales about betrayal and unexpected justice. Now, let's get into how my sister's greed led to her ultimate downfall. Olivia and Rachel Bennet grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, raised by their mother, Eleanor, after their father abandoned the family when they were young. The sisters were just 2 years apart, Olivia being the older one, but their personalities couldn't have been more different. Olivia was always the responsible one, excelling in school, working part-time jobs since she was 16, and eventually becoming a successful pediatric nurse. She approached life methodically, planning every step carefully. By 34, she had built a stable life with her husband Mark, a high school history teacher, and their daughter Emma, a precocious 9-year-old with an uncanny ability to read people. Rachel, on the other hand, was the family's wild card. Charismatic and impulsive, she floated through life on charm and quick thinking. She changed majors 3 times in college before dropping out altogether, cycled through jobs every few months, and had a trail of failed relationships behind her. Despite her flaws, Rachel had an infectious energy that made people gravitate toward her, especially their mother, Eleanor. Mom always had a soft spot for Rachel, Olivia would tell her friends. It's like she knew Rachel needed more support, more chances. And Eleanor did give Rachel more chances, more attention, and often more money. The family dynamic was further complicated when Eleanor was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's 5 years ago. At 63, Eleanor had been vibrant and independent, working as a librarian and volunteering at the local community center. The diagnosis devastated the family, forcing them to confront not only Eleanor's mortality, but also the gradual loss of the woman they knew and loved. As Eleanor's condition progressed, the sisters faced difficult decisions about her care. They sold her house and placed the proceeds, approximately $320,000, into a trust dedicated to providing for her long-term care at Silver Pines, a well-regarded assisted living facility specializing in memory care. "We need to make this money last as long as possible," Olivia had insisted during one of their planning meetings. "Mom might live another 20 years, and quality care isn't cheap." Rachel had nodded solemnly. "I know, Liv. I want the best for Mom too." They established a system where both sisters would have oversight of the trust. Olivia, with her organizational skills, would manage the monthly budgeting and payments to Silver Pines, while Rachel, who worked freelance and had a more flexible schedule, would visit Eleanor more frequently and handle her personal shopping needs and medical appointments. "I'm giving you access to the account for Mom's extras," Olivia had told Rachel. "Just keep the receipts and try to stay within the monthly budget we agreed on." At first, the arrangement worked smoothly. Eleanor received excellent care at Silver Pines, and the sisters maintained their weekly ritual of Sunday dinners together with Eleanor, Mark, and Emma. These gatherings became increasingly important as Eleanor's condition deteriorated, and she began to have trouble recognizing people. "Even when Mom doesn't remember our names, she still lights up when we're all together," Rachel had observed during one such dinner. "It's like her heart remembers what her mind can't." Emma had developed a special bond with her grandmother, patiently repeating her name and showing Eleanor photos from their past outings together. She also adored her Aunt Rachel, who brought an element of fun and spontaneity that contrasted with Olivia's more structured parenting style. "Aunt Rachel says I'm an old soul," Emma would proudly tell her mother. "She says I notice things other people miss." What no one realized was how prophetic those words would become. 2 years into their caregiving arrangement, subtle changes in Rachel's behavior began to emerge. She started arriving late to Sunday dinners or canceling at the last minute. Her once detailed reports about Eleanor's appointments became vague and dismissive. She was constantly checking her phone and seemed perpetually stressed about money despite recently moving into a newer, more expensive apartment. I thought freelance graphic design was picking up, Olivia had asked during one of Rachel's complaints about client payments. It is, but you know how it is with irregular income, Rachel had responded defensively. Some months are better than others. Olivia, consumed with her own busy schedule at the hospital and Emma's school activities, didn't press the issue. She trusted her sister implicitly. After all, they were family, and if there was one thing the Bennett sisters had learned from their father's abandonment, it was that family should always come first. Little did Olivia know that the very foundation of that trust was being systematically eroded. While she was working 12-hour shifts at the children's hospital, Rachel was siphoning funds from their mother's care account. It started small, an extra $100 here and there beyond Eleanor's needs, but gradually escalated as Rachel's lifestyle expectations grew and her financial management spiraled out of control. Rachel justified each withdrawal with elaborate rationalizations. Mom would want me to be happy, or I deserve this for all the time I spend with her, or Olivia has a stable income and a husband to help with expenses. I'm on my own. As months passed, Rachel became more sophisticated in her deception, creating false receipts for Eleanor's expenses and manipulating the digital records before their quarterly review meetings. She counted on Olivia's trust and busy schedule to prevent her from looking too closely at the transactions. Meanwhile, the relationship between the sisters remained superficially warm. They celebrated birthdays together, exchanged gifts at Christmas, and maintained the appearance of a united front in caring for their mother. But beneath Rachel's smiles and affectionate hugs lurked the growing weight of her betrayal and the fear of discovery. What Rachel failed to account for was 9-year-old Emma's growing awareness. Emma, with her quiet observational skills, began noticing inconsistencies in her aunt's stories. Like the time Rachel claimed to have taken Eleanor shopping for new winter clothes, but Eleanor was wearing the same old sweaters during their visits. Or when Rachel said she'd spent the day at Eleanor's doctor appointment, but Emma had seen a social media post showing Rachel at a resort with friends that same afternoon. Emma didn't immediately share these observations with her mother. She adored her Aunt Rachel and didn't want to cause trouble. Besides, adults often had complicated explanations for things that seemed inconsistent to a child's understanding of the world. But the seeds of suspicion had been planted, and they would soon grow into a revelation that would shatter the Bennett family's fragile equilibrium. The discovery began on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in May. Olivia was working a late shift at the hospital, so Mark picked Emma up from school. Upon arriving home, they found Rachel waiting on their porch, apparently locked out after using her emergency key to drop off some paperwork related to Eleanor's care. "Sorry to ambush you guys," Rachel said, giving Emma a big hug. "I was hoping to leave these updated care plan documents for your mom to review, but I guess I got the timing wrong." Mark invited her to stay for dinner, and Rachel readily accepted. As Mark prepared spaghetti in the kitchen, Rachel sat with Emma in the living room, constantly checking her phone and seeming distracted. "Is everything okay, Aunt Rachel?" Emma asked, noticing her aunt's nervous energy. "Just some client drama, sweetie," Rachel replied with a forced smile. "Nothing for you to worry about." When Rachel excused herself to use the bathroom, she left her phone on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a notification from a travel agency. "Your payment of $4,200 for Cancun resort package is overdue." Emma, curious by nature, couldn't help but notice. When Rachel returned, Emma innocently asked, "Are you going to Cancun, Aunt Rachel?" "That sounds fun." Rachel's face paled momentarily before she composed herself. "Oh, that's just a mix-up. I was looking into options for a potential work retreat, but we decided against it." The explanation seemed plausible, but Emma had developed a keen sense for when adults weren't being entirely truthful. Throughout dinner, she observed how Rachel changed the subject whenever Mark mentioned money or Eleanor's care arrangements. Later that night, after Rachel had gone, Emma overheard her father on the phone with Olivia. I know you trust her, but something fell off tonight, Mark said. Rachel seemed jumpy, and she had a brand new designer handbag that must have cost a fortune. Didn't she just tell us last month that she was struggling to make rent? Emma couldn't hear her mother's response, but her father's concerned tone planted another seed of worry in her mind. 2 weeks later, the Bennett family gathered at Silver Pines for Eleanor's 68th birthday celebration. The facility had set up a private dining room for them, decorated with balloons and flowers. Eleanor was having one of her better days, recognizing both daughters and even remembering Emma's recent school award. During the celebration, Emma noticed something strange. When her grandmother opened Rachel's gift, a simple scarf, Eleanor seemed confused. "This is lovely, but what happened to the pearl necklace?" Eleanor asked, momentarily lucid. "You said you were getting my mother's pearl necklace from this safety deposit box for my birthday." Rachel quickly interjected, "Mom, that was a different conversation. Remember? We decided the pearls should stay in the safe deposit box." Eleanor looked bewildered, but didn't argue. Emma, however, filed away this interaction in her growing mental catalog of inconsistencies. The real breakthrough came a month later when Olivia asked Emma to help organize some paperwork in the home office. Among the documents was a folder labeled Mom's Care, Quarterly Review. "What's this, Mom?" Emma asked, holding up a receipt that caught her eye. Olivia glanced over. "That's a receipt for Grandma's new winter clothes from last December. Aunt Rachel took her shopping." Emma frowned. "But Grandma doesn't have new winter clothes. She was wearing her old blue sweater with the hole in the sleeve when we visited last week." "I remember, because you said we should get her a new one." Olivia took the receipt from Emma's hand, examining it more carefully. "You're right. And this store is in Portland, but Grandma was in the facility that whole week because of that flu outbreak. They weren't allowing residents to leave." This observation prompted Olivia to pull out more receipts and documentation. With Emma's help, she began cross-referencing dates and expenses, finding more and more discrepancies. There were charges for medications that didn't appear in Eleanor's medical records, bills for services the facility had already covered, and numerous cash withdrawals allegedly for Eleanor's comfort items. That far exceeded what an elderly woman in assisted living could reasonably need. "Mom, remember when Aunt Rachel said she took Grandma to that fancy restaurant for her birthday lunch before our party?" Emma asked. "I don't think that happened because Grandma asked me what she had for lunch that day, and she described the facility's menu, fish sticks and applesauce." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. She had trusted her sister completely, never questioning the expenses or verifying the stories. Now, with her daughter's innocent observations, she was seeing a disturbing pattern emerge. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Olivia sat with Mark at the kitchen table, surrounded by financial statements and receipts. "I don't want to believe this," Olivia whispered, her voice breaking. "But the numbers don't lie. There's at least $56,000 missing from Mom's Care Fund over the past 2 years. Mark reached for her hand. "You need to confront Rachel about this. If there's an explanation, she deserves a chance to give it. And if not, then my own sister has been stealing from our vulnerable mother," Olivia finished, tears streaming down her face. How could she do this to Mom? To me? The next day, Olivia requested complete bank records for the trust account. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Regular withdrawals, always just small enough to avoid triggering any alerts, had been systematically draining the account meant to provide for their mother's long-term care. More damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Emma, worried about her mother's distress, had decided to look through her scrapbook collection where she kept mementos from family gatherings. There, she found photographs from the previous Christmas that showed Rachel wearing expensive new jewelry and clothes she had claimed were good knockoffs or amazing thrift store finds. In one photo, Rachel was wearing a distinctive gold bracelet. Emma remembered this clearly because she had admired it, and Rachel had told her it was just costume jewelry. But in the background of another photo taken that same day, Emma spotted a shopping bag from a high-end jewelry store known for its luxury goods. "Mom, I think Aunt Rachel might be lying about other things too," Emma said, showing Olivia her discoveries. Armed with this evidence, Olivia knew she could no longer avoid confronting her sister. But before she could formulate a plan, another revelation would force her hand and bring the family deception into the open in the most unexpected way. The confrontation occurred on a Sunday, traditionally reserved for family dinner. Olivia had spent the week gathering evidence, consulting with the bank, and even speaking with a lawyer about potential options. She had decided to give Rachel a chance to explain and make amends before taking any legal action. After all, despite everything, Rachel was still her sister. Olivia arranged for Emma to spend the afternoon at a friend's house, wanting to shield her daughter from the inevitable conflict. Mark had offered to be present for support, but Olivia felt this needed to be handled between sisters. Rachel arrived at 4 p.m., cheerful as ever, carrying an expensive bottle of wine. "Thought we could use something special today," she announced, oblivious to the storm awaiting her. Olivia led her to the dining room table, where instead of place settings, documents were neatly arranged: bank statements, highlighted withdrawal records, copies of falsified receipts, and photographs Emma had identified with discrepancies. Rachel's smile faltered. "What's all this?" "Please sit down," Olivia said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We need to talk about Mom's care fund." Rachel glanced at the papers, then back at her sister, a flicker of panic crossing her face before she composed herself. "Looks serious. Something wrong with the accounts." "You could say that." Olivia slid a summary sheet toward Rachel. "There's $56,000 missing, Rachel. Money that was supposed to ensure Mom gets the care she needs for years to come." Rachel's defensive posture was immediate. "And you think I had something to do with that? Seriously, Liv? After everything I've done for Mom." "I didn't want to believe it," Olivia continued, keeping her voice level. "But the evidence is right here. Withdrawals that don't match any legitimate expenses. Receipts for services that were never provided. Purchases that Mom never received." "This is ridiculous," Rachel scoffed, but her eyes darted nervously across the documents. "There must be some misunderstanding. Maybe the facility made billing errors or—" "Stop." Olivia's command cut through Rachel's excuses. "I've already spoken with Silver Pines. They confirmed their billing is accurate and matches what I've been paying directly from my account. These extra withdrawals were all made by you, Rachel." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Then Rachel's demeanor shifted, her shoulders slumping slightly as she realized the futility of further denial. "You don't understand what it's like," she finally said, her voice small. "You have everything figured out: the stable job, the perfect husband, the brilliant kid. I'm still struggling to keep my head above water." Olivia felt a surge of anger. "So you decided to drown Mom instead? That money wasn't yours to take." "I was going to pay it back," Rachel insisted, tears forming in her eyes. "I just needed to get through some rough patches. My business was struggling, and then there were the credit card debts. The credit card debts you racked up buying designer clothes and taking vacations." Olivia pushed the photo Emma had found across the table, Rachel on a beach that was definitely not in Oregon. "While I was working double shifts to support my family and still find time to visit Mom, you were in Cabo spending her money." Rachel's face flushed. "It wasn't like that. I deserve a life too. Do you know how depressing it is to watch Mom deteriorate? To have her look at me blankly, not even recognizing her own daughter? Those trips kept me sane so I could keep showing up for her." Olivia stood up, her hands shaking with rage. "Don't you dare use Mom's condition to justify stealing from her. That money was for her care she's going to need for years. What happens when the fund runs dry years earlier than planned? Did you even think about that?" The confrontation escalated as Rachel alternated between tearful apologies and defensive justifications. She claimed she'd been under financial pressure from an ex-boyfriend who had threatened to expose embarrassing information about her. She insisted she had a plan to make money from a new business venture that would allow her to repay everything. She blamed their mother for always putting too much pressure on her to live up to Olivia's example. "You've always been the golden child," Rachel accused, her voice bitter. "Perfect Olivia who never makes mistakes. You have no idea what it's like living in your shadow." Olivia stared at her sister, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. "This isn't about me, Rachel. This is about you betraying our mother's trust and mine. The confrontation reached its breaking point when the front door opened unexpectedly. Emma had returned early from her friend's house, walking in to find her mother and aunt in a heated argument, both with tears streaming down their faces. "Mom? Aunt Rachel? What's happening?" Emma's voice was small and frightened. Rachel quickly tried to regain her composure. "Nothing, sweetie. Just grown-up stuff. Your mom and I are having a disagreement about Grandma's care." Emma looked at the papers scattered across the table, recognition dawning on her face as she spotted the photographs she had helped find. "Is this about the money you took from Grandma?" Rachel blanched. "What? No, Emma, that's not." "I heard Dad talking about it," Emma continued, her young face serious beyond her years. "He said you took Grandma's money to buy stuff for yourself. Is that why Grandma couldn't get her medicine changed when it was making her sick?" "Because there wasn't enough money." Olivia hadn't told Emma about that particular consequence of the financial shortfall, a month when she'd had to delay an adjustment to Eleanor's medication because she'd needed to transfer funds from her own savings to cover the cost. Rachel looked stricken. "Emma, no, it wasn't like that. I would never." "You said Grandma didn't need her pearl necklace anymore because she forgets things," Emma pressed on, her child's sense of justice fully awakened. "But that's not fair. They're still her pearls, even if she forgets. You told me taking things that don't belong to you is stealing." The simple, unassailable logic of a child cut through the adult rationalizations like a knife. Rachel sank back into her chair, all pretenses crumbling in the face of Emma's innocent indictment. Olivia moved to put an arm around her daughter. "Emma, please go to your room. Aunt Rachel and I need to finish our conversation." But Emma stood her ground. "Are you going to make Aunt Rachel give back Grandma's money?" The question hung in the air, direct and unavoidable. In that moment, Olivia knew there could be no more excuses, no more second chances. Her responsibility was clear, to her mother and to her daughter, who was watching and learning what it meant to stand up for what was right. "Yes, Emma," Olivia said firmly. "One way or another, Aunt Rachel will have to make this right." The weeks following the confrontation were a blur of painful decisions and difficult conversations. Olivia had given Rachel an ultimatum: repay the money and accept professional help for her spending habits, or face legal consequences. Rachel, in a pattern consistent with her lifelong approach to problems, chose a third option. She disappeared. 3 days after the confrontation, Rachel emptied her apartment, left her job without notice, and stopped answering her phone. The only trace she left was a brief, self-justifying email to Olivia. "You've always judged me, never understanding what it's like to be the family disappointment. I'm not the villain you think I am. I needed that money more than Mom does. She doesn't even know what's happening most days. I'm starting fresh somewhere else. Don't try to find me." The betrayal cut deep, but Olivia had no time to wallow in her pain. She had to focus on damage control, securing what remained of Eleanor's care fund, explaining the situation to the administrators at Silver Pines, and most challenging of all, helping Emma understand the complicated reality of adult relationships gone wrong. But why would Aunt Rachel steal? Emma asked repeatedly in the days that followed. "She always told me she loved Grandma more than anything." Olivia struggled to find age-appropriate explanations that wouldn't completely shatter Emma's trust in people. "Sometimes, sweetie, people make bad choices even when they love someone. Aunt Rachel has problems with money and making good decisions. It doesn't mean she doesn't love Grandma or you." Emma considered this with the serious contemplation that always made her seem older than her 9 years. Is that why she always had new things, but said she didn't have money to help pay for Grandma's special chair? The observation hit Olivia like a physical blow, another detail she hadn't noticed, but her perceptive daughter had. The specialized recliner that would have made Eleanor more comfortable had been delayed for months because Olivia couldn't afford the full cost on her own, and Rachel had claimed financial hardship. Mark proved to be Olivia's rock during this period, taking on extra responsibilities at home while Olivia dealt with the financial and legal aftermath. They made the difficult decision to dip into their own retirement savings to partially replenish Eleanor's care fund, ensuring she wouldn't face any immediate reduction in services. We'll figure it out, Mark assured her. Your mom won't suffer because of Rachel's actions. The legal process was another source of stress. After consulting with an elder law attorney, Olivia filed a police report documenting the theft. She provided all the evidence she and Emma had gathered, leading to a formal investigation. The detective assigned to the case was sympathetic but realistic about the challenges of prosecuting family financial abuse, especially with Rachel now in the wind. Unfortunately, we see this kind of situation more often than you'd think, Detective Rodriguez told her. Family members exploiting vulnerable seniors is one of the fastest-growing forms of abuse. We'll do everything we can to locate your sister and build a case. Olivia also had to have a difficult conversation with Eleanor during one of her increasingly rare lucid periods. She had debated whether to burden her mother with this knowledge, but the elder law attorney had advised transparency. Mom, Olivia began gently, sitting beside Eleanor in the sunny common room at Silver Pines. I need to tell you something important about Rachel. Eleanor looked at her with momentary clarity. She took money, didn't she? Olivia was stunned. How did you know? Eleanor patted her hand weakly. I may forget names and faces, dear, but I still notice patterns. Rachel always had new things, but said there was no money for my special requests. And she changed the subject whenever I asked about my jewelry from the safety deposit box. The revelation that Eleanor had been more aware than anyone realized was both heartbreaking and vindicating. Even through the fog of dementia, she had sensed the betrayal but had been unable to articulate or address it. I'm so sorry, Mom, Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her face. I should have protected you better. Eleanor squeezed her hand with surprising strength. You're doing it now. That's what matters. That conversation proved to be one of the last truly coherent exchanges they would have. In what seemed like cruel timing, Eleanor's condition deteriorated rapidly in the months following Rachel's disappearance. The doctors assured Olivia it was just the natural progression of the disease, not a response to the family trauma, but the guilt still weighed heavily on her. Emma, meanwhile, was processing the situation in her own way. She became fiercely protective of her grandmother, spending hours at Silver Pines reading to Eleanor, showing her family photos, and creating artwork for her room. She also developed an intense interest in justice and rules, sometimes interrogating her parents about whether various actions were fair or right. Is it stealing if you borrow something and forget to give it back? She would ask at dinner. Is it okay to tell a lie if it makes someone feel better? These philosophical questions revealed how deeply the experience had affected her young worldview. One evening, as Olivia was tucking Emma into bed, her daughter asked the question Olivia had been dreading. Do you think we'll ever see Aunt Rachel again? Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. I don't know, sweetheart. Aunt Rachel made some bad choices, and she might be afraid to face the consequences. Emma was quiet for a moment, then said, I miss her sometimes, but I'm also really mad at her. Is that okay? That's more than okay, Olivia assured her. It's perfectly normal to have mixed feelings about people we love who hurt us. The important thing is that we learn from what happened and make better choices ourselves. Emma nodded solemnly. I'm never going to take something that doesn't belong to me. And I'm always going to tell the truth, even when it's hard. Olivia hugged her daughter tightly, amazed at her resilience and moral clarity. That's my wise girl. As the 6-month mark of Rachel's disappearance approached, Olivia had begun to accept that they might never recover the stolen funds or see her sister again. The police investigation had gone cold, with Rachel apparently using cash to avoid leaving an electronic trail. Olivia and Mark had adjusted their financial plans, accepting the new reality of providing for both Emma's future and Eleanor's continuing care with significantly depleted resources. We might have to downsize, Olivia admitted to Mark one night. Or I could pick up extra shifts at the hospital. Mark shook his head. You're already working yourself to the bone. We'll figure something out that doesn't involve you seeing even less of Emma and your mom. The stress was taking a toll on their marriage too, with both of them exhausted and emotionally drained. They were committed to weathering the storm together, but the strain showed in small irritations and occasional sharp words, something they tried to shield from Emma. And just when it seemed the Bennett family was settling into their new normal, albeit a damaged and diminished one. An unexpected phone call changed everything once again. Mrs. Bennett? This is Detective Rodriguez. We've located your sister. The news sent Olivia's heart racing. After all this time, Rachel had been found. But the circumstances of this discovery would prove to be even more shocking than her disappearance, setting in motion a chain of events that would bring the family's darkest secrets into the light and, ultimately, deliver a form of justice that no one could have anticipated. Hey everyone! Can you believe that bombshell we just hit? This family drama is about to reach a whole new level. If you're enjoying this story of betrayal and secrets, please smash that like button right now. I see we have viewers from all over. Drop your location in the comments so I know where you're watching from. And if you're on the edge of your seat wondering what happens next with Rachel, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the drama that's about to unfold. Now, let's continue with our story and see what Detective Rodriguez discovered. Detective Rodriguez asked Olivia to come to the station rather than discussing the matter over the phone. There are some complications we need to go over in person, she explained, her tone professional, but with an undercurrent of concern that sent Olivia's anxiety spiraling. Mark insisted on accompanying Olivia to the police station the next morning. They arranged for Emma to spend the day with a trusted neighbor, telling her only that they had a meeting about adult stuff. At the station, Detective Rodriguez led them to a small conference room rather than her desk in the open office area, another sign that whatever they were about to hear was sensitive. We located your sister 3 days ago, the detective began without preamble. She's been living under an assumed name in Scottsdale, Arizona. Is she in custody? Olivia asked, her voice tight. Not exactly. The detective slid a folder across the table. This is where it gets complicated. Rachel isn't just wanted for elder financial abuse anymore. She's become entangled in a much larger investigation. Inside the folder were surveillance photos of Rachel, her hair now dyed black, entering a luxurious desert home alongside a man Olivia didn't recognize. This is Victor Delgado, Rodriguez explained, tapping the man's image. He's been on the FBI's radar for several years as a suspected money launderer for a prescription drug trafficking operation. They specialize in diverting legitimate pharmaceuticals to the black market, particularly expensive medications for chronic conditions. Mark leaned forward. What does this have to do with Rachel? Your sister appears to have become romantically involved with Delgado shortly after arriving in Arizona. But here's the twist. We don't think this was a coincidence. The detective flipped to another page showing text messages. These were recovered from a co-conspirator's phone. Rachel had been in contact with Delgado for months before she left Portland. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face as she skimmed the messages. They revealed that Rachel hadn't just stolen from their mother's account on impulse or due to financial pressure. She had been deliberately gathering information about Eleanor's medications and the prescribing practices at Silver Pines. We believe Rachel was recruited by Delgado to provide insider information about vulnerable seniors and their medication regimens, Rodriguez continued. Elder care facilities are prime targets for these operations because of the high-value prescriptions and potential for exploitation. Are you saying my sister wasn't just stealing money? Olivia's voice shook. She was helping these people target seniors for their medications. The evidence suggests she started by providing information. The financial theft may have been a side operation she conducted on her own, or it might have been at Delgado's direction to test her willingness to cross lines. The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was a betrayal far deeper and more sinister than she had imagined. Rachel hadn't just taken advantage of their mother's vulnerability. She had potentially put Eleanor and other seniors at risk as part of a criminal enterprise. There's more, Rodriguez said gently. The FBI found evidence that Rachel may have been tampering with medication deliveries at Silver Pines during her regular visits. Nothing that would cause immediate harm, but altering quantities in ways that would force more frequent refills, increasing the volume of drugs that could be diverted. Mark gripped Olivia's hand as she struggled to process this information. Did my mother receive incorrect medications because of this? We don't have evidence of that specifically, the detective assured her. The operation was sophisticated enough to want to avoid detection through patient harm. but we're working with Silver Pines to audit all their medication protocols and patient records. Olivia thought back to the times when Eleanor had seemed more confused or lethargic than usual, incidents the doctors had attributed to the natural progression of her disease. Had those actually been the results of medication tampering? The possibility made her physically ill. "Where's Rachel now?" Mark asked, his arm around Olivia's shoulders. "In FBI custody," Rodriguez replied. "They conducted a raid on Delgado's operation yesterday. Rachel is cooperating in exchange for potential leniency, which is how we learned the full extent of her involvement." "And the money?" Olivia asked, though it seemed almost irrelevant now compared to the larger crimes. "Some of it might be recoverable, but much of it was likely funneled into the operation or spent. The FBI has seized Delgado's assets, and if Rachel's theft can be linked to those funds, there could be restitution as part of the federal case." As they left the police station, Olivia felt numb. The sister she had grown up with, argued with, laughed with, and trusted with their mother's care had been living a double life as a criminal who preyed on vulnerable seniors. "I need to check on Mom," she said to Mark as they reached the car. Despite the detective's assurances, she wouldn't rest until she had seen Eleanor with her own eyes and confirmed she was safe. At Silver Pines, the staff had already been briefed about the investigation. The facility director, Mrs. Patel, met with Olivia privately. "We're conducting a full audit of all medication protocols," she assured Olivia. "And we've implemented additional security measures for the medication room and delivery procedures." "Was my mother harmed?" Olivia asked directly. Mrs. Patel's expression was sympathetic but honest. "We don't have evidence of direct harm, but there were some irregularities in Eleanor's medication logs that we're investigating. I want to assure you that we're doing everything possible to ensure all our residents' safety moving forward." Olivia spent an hour with Eleanor, who was mercifully unaware of the turmoil surrounding her. As Olivia watched her mother dozing peacefully in her favorite chair, she struggled to reconcile the enormity of Rachel's betrayal with the sister she thought she knew. "How could she do this?" she whispered to Mark as they drove home. "Not just to me, but to Mom? To vulnerable people who couldn't protect themselves." Mark had no answers, only support. "I don't know, Liv. Some people just break bad. And once they start down that path, each step makes the next one easier." When they returned home, they faced the challenge of explaining the situation to Emma. They had agreed to be honest with her in an age-appropriate way, knowing that children often sensed when adults were hiding difficult truths. "Remember how we talked about Aunt Rachel taking Grandma's money?" Olivia began gently. Emma nodded solemnly. "Well, the police found Aunt Rachel, but it turns out she was involved in some other bad things too. She was helping people who were trying to take advantage of older people like Grandma." Emma's perceptive eyes widened. "Is that why she always looked at Grandma's medicine bottles when she visited?" The innocent observation hit Olivia like a thunderbolt. Even a child had noticed something she had missed. 3 months after Rachel's arrest, the Bennett family was still adjusting to their new reality. Olivia had taken a leave of absence from the hospital to focus on Eleanor's care and Emma's emotional needs. The financial strain was significant, but they were managing with careful budgeting and some assistance from Mark's parents. The legal proceedings against Rachel and the Delgado network were moving slowly through the system. Rachel had turned state's evidence, providing detailed information about the operation in exchange for reduced charges. She would still face prison time, but potentially years rather than decades. Olivia had refused all contact with her sister, returning Rachel's letters unopened and declining requests for visits. The betrayal felt too profound, the damage too extensive, for any possibility of reconciliation. On a crisp Saturday morning in October, Olivia was sorting through old family photos for a memory book the therapist had suggested making for Eleanor. Emma sat beside her, asking questions about the images of a younger Eleanor and her daughters. "Who's that man with you and Aunt Rachel?" Emma asked, pointing to a faded photograph Olivia hadn't seen in years. The image showed teenage Olivia and Rachel flanking a handsome, smiling man on a fishing boat. Olivia felt a twist in her stomach. "That's Uncle James," she said carefully. "Mom's younger brother." "I didn't know we had an Uncle James," Emma said, curious. How come he never visits Grandma? Olivia hesitated. He and Mom had a falling out many years ago. Before you were born. What happened? Emma persisted. Mark, overhearing from the kitchen, gave Olivia a questioning look. This was family history they rarely discussed, but with all that had happened, perhaps it was time for some old secrets to come to light. Uncle James and Grandma had a big disagreement about money, Olivia explained, simplifying the complex family drama. He was starting a business and wanted to use some money that had been set aside for your great-grandparents' care. When Grandma refused, he became very angry and stopped speaking to her. What Olivia didn't explain was how James had attempted to manipulate their mother into changing their grandparents' care arrangements to free up inheritance money early. When Eleanor had stood firm, protecting her parents' welfare, James had retaliated with a vicious campaign of emotional manipulation and eventually cut ties completely. As Emma continued looking through photos, Olivia was struck by an uncomfortable parallel she had never considered before. The pattern Rachel had followed, betraying family trust, prioritizing personal gain over a vulnerable family member's welfare, mirrored Uncle James's behavior decades earlier. Mark, she said quietly when Emma had gone to get her art supplies to decorate the memory book. Do you remember all the stories Rachel used to tell about how close she was to Uncle James when we were kids? Mark nodded slowly. You think there's a connection? Rachel was only 12 when that blow-up with James happened. She was always his favorite. He took her fishing, taught her to drive. She was devastated when he left. Olivia felt pieces clicking into place. What if he reached out to her at some point? What if he's connected to all this? The theory gained unexpected support that very afternoon when Detective Rodriguez called with an update. The FBI has been digging into Delgado's associates, she explained. They've identified a financial backer who operates through a series of shell companies. The name James Bennett has come up in their investigation. Olivia gripped the phone tightly. That's my uncle. My mother's brother. We'll need to speak with you about him, Rodriguez said. This could significantly change the scope of the investigation. The following week brought a flurry of meetings with FBI agents specializing in long-term financial crimes. They revealed that James Bennett had built a network of enterprises that walked the line between legitimate business and criminal activity. The prescription drug diversion operation was just one facet of his dealings, which included investment scams targeting seniors. We believe your uncle may have specifically recruited Rachel to target your mother's care facility, Agent Torres explained. Not just as a random opportunity, but as part of a long-standing grudge against your mother. So Rachel didn't just fall into this, Olivia said, the realization both horrifying and strangely relieving. She was groomed for it by my uncle. The evidence suggests she was initially brought in under false pretenses, Torres confirmed. James represented the operation as a gray market prescription resale business that helped people who couldn't afford their medications. By the time Rachel understood the full scope of the criminal enterprise, she was already implicated. This didn't excuse Rachel's actions, but it provided context that helped Olivia begin to make sense of her sister's descent into criminality. Rachel had always sought approval and connection, making her vulnerable to manipulation by someone she had once adored. When FBI agents finally apprehended James Bennett in his upscale Miami home, the evidence they discovered was damning. Digital communications revealed that James had indeed orchestrated Rachel's involvement as part of a twisted revenge against Eleanor, whom he still blamed for thwarting his early financial schemes. I want Eleanor to suffer the consequences of her self-righteousness, he had written to an associate. Poetic justice that her precious care fund will be drained by the daughter she always indulged. The revelation of this decades-long vendetta sent shockwaves through Olivia's understanding of her family history. What she had always viewed as a simple estrangement between siblings had actually been festering malice that ultimately ensnared Rachel and threatened Eleanor's well-being. In a surprising development, Rachel requested a supervised meeting with Olivia following James's arrest. After weeks of deliberation and consultation with her therapist, Olivia agreed. The sisters met in a conference room at the detention center where Rachel awaited sentencing. Rachel looked diminished, her designer clothes exchanged for a simple jumpsuit, her once perfect hair now showing its natural color at the roots. "Thank you for coming," Rachel said, her voice small. "I know I don't deserve it." Olivia remained guarded. "I'm here to understand, not to forgive." Rachel nodded. "That's fair." She took a deep breath. "Uncle James contacted me 3 years ago. Said he'd been keeping track of the family from afar. He knew about Mom's condition and offered to help with some creative financing for her care." As Rachel recounted her gradual entanglement in James's schemes, Olivia listened with a clinical detachment that protected her from the pain of each new betrayal described. "I'm not using him as an excuse," Rachel insisted tearfully. "I made my choices. But I want you to know it didn't start with me deciding to steal from Mom. It started with small compromises that got bigger and bigger until I couldn't find my way back." Olivia thought of Emma's simple questions about right and wrong. "There was always a way back, Rachel. You just didn't take it." Before leaving, Olivia asked the question that had haunted her most. "Did you ever tamper with Mom's medications?" "I need to know." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "No. That was my line. I gave information about the facility's supply chain, but I swore I'd walk away if anyone touched Mom's meds. I'd like to think I would have kept that promise." Olivia wasn't sure she believed her sister, but the investigation had found no evidence of direct harm to Eleanor, which provided some small comfort. As she drove home from the detention center, Olivia reflected on the web of deception, resentment, and misplaced loyalty that had entangled her family. The betrayal had come from within, motivated by grievances that had festered for decades. And yet, from this painful unraveling had come truth, and perhaps, eventually, a chance for healing. 1 year after the confrontation that exposed Rachel's betrayal, the Bennett family gathered at Silver Pines to celebrate Eleanor's 69th birthday. Though Eleanor's cognitive decline had continued, making her unable to recognize her family most days, Olivia insisted on maintaining these celebrations. "Even if she doesn't understand it's her birthday," Olivia explained to Emma, "she feels the love and happiness around her. That's what matters." The past year had brought significant changes. James Bennett had been convicted on multiple federal charges and sentenced to 15 years in prison. His extensive assets had been seized, and as part of the restitution agreement, a substantial portion had been allocated to victims of his schemes, including a complete restoration of Eleanor's care fund. Rachel had received a reduced sentence of 4 years in exchange for her testimony against James and the Delgado network. She was serving her time at a minimum security facility where she had begun training as a paralegal through a prison education program, hoping to build a legitimate career upon her release. Olivia had established a cautious, limited correspondence with her sister. The betrayal was too profound for their relationship to ever fully recover, but Olivia had found that maintaining some connection was healthier than carrying the weight of active resentment. "I'll never trust her again," she confided to Mark. "But I can acknowledge that she was also a victim of James's manipulation, even while holding her accountable for her own choices." The most remarkable transformation had been in Emma. The perceptive 9-year-old whose observations had helped uncover Rachel's deception was now 10, and the experience had shaped her in unexpected ways. She had developed a passionate interest in justice and advocacy, particularly for vulnerable populations. "I want to be a lawyer for old people when I grow up," she announced at dinner one evening. "So nobody can steal from them or trick them." Olivia and Mark had nurtured this interest, helping Emma research age-appropriate ways to volunteer with seniors and supporting her school project on elder rights. They were determined that something positive should come from the family trauma. The financial recovery from James's seized assets had eased the immediate pressure on the Bennett family. Olivia had returned to work at the hospital, though with a reduced schedule that allowed more time with Eleanor and Emma. Mark had received a promotion to department head at his school, bringing additional stability. Silver Pines had implemented enhanced security measures for medication management and financial oversight, changes that were being adopted by other facilities in their network. The FBI's investigation had exposed vulnerabilities throughout the elder care system, prompting regulatory reforms that would protect countless seniors beyond Eleanor. As they gathered around Eleanor's birthday cake, Olivia felt a complex mixture of emotions. Sadness for all that had been lost, her mother's health, her relationship with her sister, the family's innocence and trust. But also gratitude for what remained and what had been gained, Eleanor's continued comfort, Emma's resilience and compassion, the strengthened bond between her and Mark, and the unexpected justice that had emerged from chaos. "Make a wish," Grandma Emma said, helping Eleanor blow out the single symbolic candle. Eleanor smiled vaguely, perhaps not understanding the ritual, but responding to the warmth in her granddaughter's voice. Later that evening, after Eleanor had returned to her room and Emma was engrossed in a book, Olivia and Mark sat in the facility's garden, watching the sunset. "Do you ever think about how differently this could have turned out?" Mark asked. If Emma hadn't noticed those inconsistencies. Olivia nodded, still amazed by how her daughter's simple observations had unraveled such an elaborate deception. Rachel might have gotten away with it. Mom's fund would have been drained years early. James and his network would still be operating, harming who knows how many vulnerable seniors. All stopped by a 9-year-old's attention to detail, Mark marveled. And her sense of right and wrong, Olivia added. Even when she didn't fully understand what was happening, she knew something wasn't right about Rachel's behavior. They sat in comfortable silence for a while until Olivia spoke again. "I received another letter from Rachel yesterday. She's been working with the prosecutors to identify other elder care facilities targeted by James's network. She says it's her way of trying to make amends." "Do you believe her?" Mark asked gently. Olivia sighed. "I believe she wants to do better. Whether that's genuine remorse or just self-interest in reducing her sentence. I guess time will tell. And how are you doing with all of it?" Mark reached for her hand. "You've been so focused on taking care of everyone else." Olivia considered the question seriously. "I'm healing. There are days when I'm still so angry I can barely breathe. And others when I just feel sad for everyone involved, Mom, Rachel, even James in a way. But mostly, I'm grateful for what this experience has shown me. Which is, that family isn't just about blood," she said, squeezing his hand. "It's about choices. Daily choices to be honest, to be kind, to protect each other. Rachel and James chose their path. We're choosing ours." As they walked back to say goodnight to Eleanor, Olivia paused at her mother's door, watching Emma reading aloud to her grandmother. Eleanor might not understand the words, but she was smiling at the sound of her granddaughter's voice, a connection that transcended memory and cognitive ability. In that moment, Olivia found a measure of peace. The betrayal had been devastating, but it hadn't destroyed what mattered most. Her family, the one built on love and integrity rather than merely blood, remained strong. And from the painful lessons of the past year, Emma was developing the wisdom and compassion that would guide her throughout her life. Justice had come in unexpected ways. Not just through legal proceedings and financial restitution, but through the revelation of long-hidden truths and the affirmation of values that would shape generations to come. The money Rachel had stolen had been recovered, but the true wealth was in the bonds that had withstood betrayal and emerged stronger for having been tested. As Emma finished her story and closed the book, she looked up at Olivia standing in the doorway. "Mom," she said with the simple wisdom of a child, "I think Grandma remembers us in her heart, even when her brain forgets." Olivia smiled through sudden tears. "I think you're right, sweetheart. Love remembers, even when everything else is forgotten." Wow, what an incredible journey we've been through together in this story. I want to thank each and every one of you for staying with me until the end. If you've ever experienced family betrayal or witnessed justice finally being served after a long struggle, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Has karma ever come back around in your family situations? What lessons have you learned from difficult family dynamics? Remember, our strongest family bonds aren't always about blood. They're about the choices we make every day. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it too. Subscribe to my channel for more real-life family drama stories with unexpected twists, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that justice sometimes comes from the most unexpected places, even a perceptive 9-year-old. Thank you all for being part of my YouTube family, and I'll see you in the next video with another shocking true tale that will leave you speechless.